Hey, thanks for jumping into the Weekend Rewind. Here's a chat I had with Andy Storch. This is the first time we ever spoke. We have become such great mates since, and even last year I spoke at Andy's Talent Development Think Tank Conference in Sonoma, California. We voice note all the time. He's now living with his family in Barcelona. Just an incredible dude. Does a ton, always about the connections and the relationships, and it was really fun listening to this conversation again. Enjoy this episode, and I'll speak to you tomorrow. Over the next 30 minutes, we touch on things like conference organizing, LinkedIn, using LinkedIn to build your brand, the importance of having morning rituals, how to write a book, being intentional with your career, as well as experiential learning. Yeah, that's right. We cover all of that for you today. His name is Andy Storch, and he is a talent development consultant, coach, author, speaker, and connector. I will actually add in super connector. I believe he is one of those just from our conversation. Stay tuned to listen in on how he does it all. Listen in and don't forget to connect with Andy on LinkedIn. Andy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Leanne, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here. And I don't know, when you invited me on, I was overjoyed and I just couldn't wait to talk to you because we have so much in common, so many subjects we're interested in, and I can't wait to dive in.
I know, it's so true. We've got a lot in common. And I was actually going through my memory bank and trying to figure out how I discovered you. And it was actually, I mean, now that I know you, it's so obvious that we should be talking. But I think it was Michael Bungay Stania was talking at your conference, which then had to be rescheduled because of fires, I
Right.
believe.
Yeah,
so he was going on about, these guys that have organized this conference and now they're quickly adapting. And I was like, well, who are these guys? So can you please share with our listeners? I mean, you do an awful lot. A bit about your career history, what you do now.
Yeah, sure. And that was amazing. We did have to reschedule a conference due to wildfires, something you're very familiar with down there in Australia, right? But yeah, to take a step back, and to make it relevant to your listeners who are interested in facilitation, going way back, I was in corporate, I got an MBA, and I worked for a large insurance company. I just wasn't very fulfilled in the job I had. I didn't know what I was doing or why I was there. And I got very lucky that a friend of mine got me an interview at this consulting company, this Swedish company called BTS. And they're best known for creating custom business simulations and strategy alignment type work. And it opened my eyes to this whole world of facilitation. I got to start designing and delivering workshops and traveling all over the world and getting up in front of the room. And I realized that this is something that not only was I good at, but I really loved. And so I got to do a lot of that. I worked there for 7 years, based out of San Francisco, and then eventually moving back to my hometown of Orlando, Florida in the US, where I live now. I started really getting into personal development about 5 years ago, back in 2016, and really went on this journey of self-discovery and understanding who I wanted to be, and that I wanted to get back to doing more entrepreneurial type stuff. And so I ended up leaving BTS to go take a role or become a partner with a smaller firm called Advantage Performance Group as an independent consultant, independent contractor. So I don't have my own boss. I don't have a boss. I work on my own, but I'm part of this group selling and running training and development to large companies, essentially. So I'm running a lot of connecting companies with experiential learning programs, things like leadership development, business acumen, sales training, running a lot of business simulations, probably more leadership development than anything else. And I started podcasting about 3 years ago, and I started my business podcast, The Talent Development Hot Seat, a couple years ago in 2018 to kind of build my network and learn as much as I could about this world of talent development as I was going into it. And it was really just for me to network and learn, but it started really growing. And so about a year ago, my friend Bennett Phillips, who recruited me into the business, had this conversation and said, why don't we try to host a conference? I don't know why we thought we could pull that off, but we did. It took about 10 months of planning and marketing and talking to everybody we knew and booking the best speakers we could find. We got Michael Bungay Stania, as you mentioned, Liz Weissman, who wrote the book Multipliers. We had Josh Burson as our opening keynote speaker, which was a big name to get. And it was supposed to go off in November 2019, but because of the wildfires in Northern California, we ended up having to reschedule it for January, and we still pulled it off. It was great.
It's so good that you rescheduled for January and not March.
I know. I mean, we were talking about March, and then we said, no, let's try to make it happen in January. And it really was we had 4 big keynote speakers and then about 20 breakout facilitator speakers. And I was like a miracle that we were able to get all of them to the new dates. When you think about someone like Michael Bungay-Stanier or Liz Weissman or Josh Burson traveling the world with all the speaking they do, it's a miracle we got them. We had some people who bought tickets originally that couldn't make the new dates, but we sold tickets to new people. And everything worked out well. It was a really, really great conference.
And it's not just you saying that, Andy. Longtime listener of the show, Aminata, we had a quick call recently, and she was just going on and on about how amazing this conference was. The food was incredible. The speakers, she said, is probably one of the best conferences that she has ever been to. So considering that it's your first, congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's talk about, I would like to stick on the conference for a little bit longer, because
Sure.
what I love about your story is it's very similar to mine in that I started this podcast to build relationships and to learn more about facilitation. And what you've gone an extra step by putting on the conference, which is amazing. I know you did an episode about your top tips for organising conferences. For our facilitator audience who are working with companies and they're probably hosting virtual events now, do you have any sort of quick tips for them?
Well, I appreciate you bringing that up and, mentioning Amanita's comment, and I was so glad that she was there. We heard consistently from all of our participants, we had over 100 people there, that it was one of, if not the best conferences they ever attended. And I was so grateful to hear that. And I think there were a lot of things we did well. And as you mentioned, I listed that out in the blog post article I wrote on LinkedIn, on the podcast episode I did. But I think one of the keys goes way back to our mission when we started it. And this is something I think your audience will really appreciate, that I go to a lot of conferences and I love going to conferences for the networking and the learning. But I would go to conferences in like the HR talent development space to, network, see what's going on, meet new clients. And I found most of them to be so boring, really just, PowerPoint, death by PowerPoint, one person on stage talking, going through slide after slide, people just tuning out. And I thought we could do better. Like, we are in the talent development space. We can definitely do better. And so we set out to do this conference, and we said every session has to be interactive. Every session has to be experiential. There's no excuses. We had one exception, and that was Josh Burson's opening session. For those of you who know Josh, follow Josh. He's like the expert in the HR space, like knows what's going on. He doesn't do experiential. He stands up on the stage and talks, but his stuff is so good that people are like, every slide, like, whoa, that's amazing. But it set the tone for the conference. Everything else we did was interactive, experiential. That meant that people had to participate. They couldn't sit back. And because of that, they really got to know each other. They really learned from each other. They networked. They built bonds, they built connections, which is what I love doing, is connecting people. And, I have firm belief for conferences or any type of community that people may often come for the content, the speakers, the content of the program, whatever it may be, but what they really remember are the connections they make, the things they learn from each other, the networking, the friendships, the relationships. And I have people from that conference that still keep in touch. And that's what makes me so happy. And that's why I think people love the conference so much.
Yeah, I agree. And just prior to recording, I know I shouldn't say that, you're a podcaster. You never refer to what you were talking about beforehand, but I just did.
Oh, really? I didn't even know that.
Dave Jackson reckons. Yeah, I do it all the time too. But Stu McLaren, we're just talking about, he runs like membership, and the quote that he says is, people come for the content, but they stay for the community. And I think that's sort of what I agree. For every workshop that I've run, it's always been, the content. It's more about, I didn't know that Bob that worked 5 meters away from me played golf, or it's just building all those connections and enabling those conversations. Now, you touched on experiential learning. We haven't really talked in over 100, 15, 16 episodes. We haven't really talked about experiential learning. We've talked about workshop design and everything else. So can you explain to our listeners, what is the difference? Why experiential learning is so valuable?
I'm such a big proponent of this. I think people can learn from passive learning, right? Sitting and listening to PowerPoint, listening to podcasts like you're doing right now, reading a book. I do a lot of those things, but I think people learn the most from experiencing things themselves, right? We learn from the mistakes we make in life, the successes we make, the things that we are participating in. So I'm a big fan of using experiential or discovery-based learning, where people are interacting, they're getting to practice, doing the things, whether it's role plays, or I do a lot of kind of like multiple choice moment based simulations and programs where people go through in teams and are faced with tough situations, and they have to work together to decide what's the best way to go. And here's the thing. In sports and in the military, you think about those two areas where people have to perform at their highest level, pro athletes, whatever it may be, they spend most of their time practicing. In the military, they spend way more time practicing than they ever do executing on the battlefield, if they even ever get there, right? But they're always ready because they practice. In business, we don't ever practice. Yeah. We just send out an email and say, here's the strategy, now go into that client meeting and go do it, and somehow expect everybody to understand it and to just get it and it to stick with them, when that's not the way it works. People see it and they're like, yeah, whatever. And then they forget, right? People will tolerate the things that people tell them, but they really remember what they actually experience for themselves. And so I'm a big fan of getting people up and moving. It also makes things more engaging, makes it more fun. So we do a lot of competitive stuff. We had a session at our conference on inclusivity. We've got a partnership with a guy named Brent Snow, has this really cool program called the Inclusive Leader. And I'll never forget this, because this is a topic that could be boring, right? You think about those sessions on diversity and inclusion, like this is why you need to be, thinking about this sort of stuff in one ear and out the other. We did this after lunch on the second day. It was a 2-hour session, and it was all card sorts and people having to grapple with different decisions, and they were up and around, and the room was loud, and everybody was talking to each other and debating how to handle these different types of situations. And it's one of my favorite moments from the conference. And it just, to me, that's the power of experiential learning. And so many people have told me from that they remember that session fondly. They still remember some of the lessons they learned. And that's what we want at the end of the day, right? We want people to remember stuff and change behaviors.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's nice to create the energy and the buzz, but it's really important about the behavior change and even sort of selling an idea so powerfully that someone's willing to accept it and be challenged, particularly when it comes to bias and being inclusive. You spoke about experiential learning, and something that you do is you give people different options. So you write scenarios out where they get to pick an idea. I've done that before. It certainly takes a lot of effort to write one, to craft one up, and, I hop onto Google and I tweak some ones, but it's, you've really got to sort of think about that experience. What are your ideas for getting inspiration for writing those type of scenarios? I mean, do you have a team or?
Yeah. So first of all, caveat, this is not my strength. I've been involved in this. I don't create them anymore. I'm better on the facilitation side than the creation of it. But when I worked at BTS, this was a lot of what we did. We created custom business simulations that have these decisions all baked into it. And the idea for that, when it's custom, is we do a lot of interviews at a company, interview leaders, executives, find out what are the types of situations that they face that they want other people in the organization to understand. And then write a scenario that kind of models that, and give people multiple choices that are not easy to ignore. It's not an easy answer, because there are always trade-offs. And I think that's the important thing, is to remember that every decision we make has trade-offs, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes we make decisions, people ask us for something, or we think like, oh yeah, it just makes sense to go do that. But every time you decide to do one thing, you are now not able to do something else, right? Or, it makes sense to, if you spend money on marketing, like you and I run podcasts, right? If we spend money on marketing, we might be able to grow our audience and our exposure, but then we have less money to spend on something else. Like maybe we have to do our own editing or whatever it may be, right? Mm-hmm. There's always trade-offs, and businesses are making these as well. So you force people into these type of situations where they've got to make the same trade-offs that the C-suite and everybody does in the business in real life. The other thing you can do is look at the content that you're presenting and see if there are actually some different ways to approach different situations. So one example is, are you familiar with the book Multipliers by Liz Weissman? No,
but you've mentioned her so much on your show that I feel like I need to go and add it to my bookshelf.
Yeah, you may want to check it out. So Liz Weissman was the head of Oracle University many years ago, and she started to discover that some people are more, some leaders are able to get more intelligence out of their people than others, and she wanted to find out why. So she went on this journey of discovery and did a huge research project, ended up writing this book called Multipliers about 10 years ago. It's been a sensation in kind of the talent development, leadership development space, and a lot of organizations live by it. And a lot of people love the book, but still, like, it's static reading. It doesn't quite stick. So we have actually a program, a full day program that's based on that book. And what we did was take a lot of the lessons and bring them to life in a series of 10 scenarios where you're faced with a tough situation. How do you best multiply your people when you see, for example, you see John in a conference room leading a meeting and he's kind of sucking the air out of the room. He's not really taking in the ideas from his team. How do you deal with that? Do you wait to talk to him at his next one-on-one? Do you give him feedback right away? Do you jump into the meeting and take over? And there's trade-offs to all of these things. So it's kind of taking like the general advice of, hey, you should give someone immediate feedback and making it more of a real life type scenario where you've got to decide, and maybe there's other aspects to it, like you've got another meeting coming up and you don't have much time. You know, in life, we're always making these decisions. Yeah. And sometimes in these programs, we just make it so cut and dry when we could make it more like real life and show people the real struggle.
Yeah, I love that. And it's immediately applicable. But it's also sort of when you have those discussions around your decision, what it does is you get some real insight into where people are coming from, what they value, maybe any fears they have about having that conversation, and even just little things like what space, like where do you take John? Like, do you go outside? And like all these little things that you don't really consider when you're having a really broad conversation on feedback. Right. Now, it's funny that you also mentioned, you're similar to me, that you'd prefer just to facilitate and not have to get into the detail of the design. Can you share with our listeners how you prepare for an upcoming facilitation event, whether it is virtual or face-to-face?
Oh, I was hoping you wouldn't ask this question because I'm not very good about the preparation part of things, but I'll usually get materials ahead of time, and my son just joined me here. He's drinking some water. And I will review materials. I am kind of a procrastinator when it comes to that stuff, so I might wait until a day or two before. I know other people like to be prepared much further in advance. Mm-hmm. I also have learned and know that I don't have a lot of patience for just sitting and reading through stuff. So I learn a lot more from talking to people. And so if I was running a program that maybe you had run in the past, I would try to get time from you and just get the download from you. I was just saying to you right before we got on, see, now I'm referring to our conversation before the interview too, that I've got my first virtual facilitation tomorrow. And it's a program I've run. It's the Multipliers program, actually, but I've only run it in person before, and this one's going to be over Zoom. So I have all the materials, and I've read through some of it, but I most importantly got on Zoom earlier with a colleague of mine who has already done it a couple of times and said, hey, just give me your quick, tips. Where are the pitfalls? Where could I maybe fall down? What are the things I really need to pay attention to? Because I'm trying to optimize my time here. And she can tell me the places where I need to go. And now I feel a lot more prepared for it.
It's good sort of figuring out the best way that you take in information and then using that to optimize what you do. So that's really good. So if you do prefer reading, go with it. But if you prefer talking to people, go with that. Or if you prefer actually doing, then just practice.
Everybody's got their own style.
Absolutely. And I noticed in your background, we are recording this interview on YouTube. So if you want to see what's going on, watch the video.
If you want to watch my children barge in the middle of this, I'm sure they will at some point.
But you've also got a bike in the background, and I follow you on Instagram, and it seems like you've got a pretty well-structured morning routine. So I'm sure that would possibly help as well. Can you quickly talk through listeners on what you do in the mornings? You're up pretty early.
Yeah, I do get up pretty early. I'm a big fan of the morning routine. I learned this from reading a book called The Miracle Morning by a man named Hal Elrod, who is amazing human, lives in the United States here as well, but his book is a global sensation. And it's all about taking, he went on a journey many years ago and studied what are the things that the most successful people do. And he put them together in a series of six of those things together in one practice that he called the Miracle Morning. And it just means the idea is you get up earlier than you need to. So most people get up right before they have to make breakfast and get out the door for work, right? And everybody's rushing right away. The idea is you get up like an hour or so earlier than you need to and spend that time doing things like meditating, reading, writing, using affirmations, visualization, and getting some exercise. So I started doing that, and I really got addicted to it, and I started getting up earlier and earlier. So now I typically get up at 4:30 on weekdays, and I will meditate, and then I'll take a walk. I'll do some reading. I take out my journal. I'll plan my day. I'll plan some of the content I want to put out there, some of the things I want to get done. I've also been writing a book, and so I take some of the time in the morning to work on that. I've been doing that every day for the last 3.5 months or so.
Wow. And
that's the quiet time before the kids get up at 7, and then everything is chaotic after that, right? Mm-hmm. So I really like having that structured time. I'm also really big on living intentionally. And I think the more time we can spend with intention, like that means I'm doing these things because I want to do these things. I'm not reacting to anybody else, text messages, emails, whatever it may be. It allows me to focus on the most important things for me, which is, learning, growth, my own health. Tomorrow morning, I'll probably spend some time planning out that facilitation and reviewing the materials again to make sure that I've got it right. Whereas the next day I might be working on client proposals or thinking about some conversations or trying to book some meetings for my business, whatever the most important things are for me. I kind of know what those are, and then I can keep track of it in my journal as well as, project management software I use and things like that.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I've also heard Hal, who's been interviewed on Jordan Harbinger's show and Pat Flynn's. And I go through stages of using not all 6, but I'll go a bit of journaling, definitely exercise, and reading in the morning is important to me. So yeah, thanks for sharing his philosophy.
And Hal has been on my podcast twice as well.
Has he? Fantastic. I'll have to tune in. I every time I listen to him, I'm like, oh, so motivated. He's incredible. He's incredible. So tell us about your book, because I have, like everyone, like every podcaster, you think, oh, I'd love to write a book one day. Yeah. And even the thought of it is, I haven't even taken pen to paper just to start. So what are your tips for writing a book? And then can you share with our listeners what your book is all about?
Yeah, I would be happy to. Even just the thought of it can be daunting, right? So there's 2 things there. One, you got to know what you want to write about. And so I was in the same position for a long time. I thought it'd be nice to write a book. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I'm passionate enough to sit down. I don't know how I would do it. It seems like a lot of work. I've been podcasting. I'm good at talking to people. Can I even write? I have no idea, right? These are all things you got to figure it out. And for me, it all came together actually in a lightning bolt at a conference. And I love going to conferences because of the learning and the networking. So last November, I was at the Upreneur Summit in London, hosted by a guy named Chris Ducker. So I've gone to that the last 2 years in a row. Phenomenal conference. It's great. I've made some great friends there. And there was a guy there speaking named Jeff Goins, who has written a few books, and he was speaking about like how to write a bestseller or write a great book or whatever. And I was just kind of taking notes, still not sure what I was going to do with it. And then right after that, I got interviewed by another friend of mine who has a really popular YouTube channel named Philip Van Dusen. And he was interviewing me kind of about all the stuff that I do and building my brand and network and all that sort of stuff. And right after that, we were having a conversation. It just kind of all came together to me like a lightning bolt of like, oh my gosh, I know what the book is. It's about helping corporate professionals take ownership of their career. And the book is called Own Your Career, Own Your Life. I knew what the title was. It's designed to help people stop drifting, take control, achieve their goals, and own their future. And I started writing it on January 1st. And I set this goal that I didn't know how long it was going to be. Like you said, the idea of writing a whole book seems really daunting. So I know from experience in achieving and not achieving different goals that it's really important to break it down into smaller goals or habits. So I'm really big on that sort of stuff. And so I found out, I started talking to a bunch of people, different authors. I found out that the average business book is about 50,000 words, which again, sounds really big. So I said, all right, if I can write 500 words a day, which is very doable, then after 100 days, roughly, I would have a 50,000 word book, right? Oh. And so I started, it makes it really think about that. You're like, oh, that's not bad.
That's easy.
Right. It's easy. You just write 500 words a day. It's probably, and actually I have a book coach, a woman I hired, I'm going through her course, and she makes it even easier because she's like, you probably write a couple emails a day that are at least 200 to 300 words. Right. And so if you just think about it like a long email, like you can do that. I'm like, okay. So I did. I sat down, I started writing every day, 7 days a week. There were a couple days here and there where I didn't. There were a couple days here and there where I wrote 1,500 words or 2,000 words. And near the end of March, I finished the first draft of my book. It was 60,000 words. And my average writing for the day, looking back, was about 580 words a day, something like that. So it took me about 100 days to write this book, a little bit longer. And now we're in April. I'm reviewing it. I've just hired an editor and putting together a whole marketing plan based on the course and just all the context. I know so many other authors who shared kind of their mistakes and things they've done that have been successful. But the mission behind it, I want to make it a big impact because there are so many people out there who are kind of drifting, don't really know what they're doing or what they want to do with their career, who are not really living intentionally. They're in reaction mode. And I want to change that. I want to help people really take control of their careers, set a vision, connect to their purpose, and really prepare for the future, whether that's building a network, building a personal brand, all those things, and get involved in more personal development to understand who they are and where they want to go. And I think I can help a lot of people be happier that way.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for you, and what you've just talked about your process. Thanks for being so open and sharing that. It's very inspiring. Inspiring, I guess, in the way that you've made it so achievable. And I write emails like that all the time. So
totally. Right.
Yeah.
We all do, right? And sometimes you write that long email and you don't even send it. You're like,
Yeah, that's it. And absolutely, I love your focus of the book as well. Having come from corporate, I definitely connect with that. And even probably 3 or 4 years ago, I thought I had a brand in my corporate role. And then I ended up doing, Dory Clark.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I did one of her just free assessments, and I think I scored like 7 out of 100 on brands. And I thought, oh my goodness, there's so much I've got to do. But it's just even raising the awareness of where you are and where you could be, but also connecting to purpose, which is so, it's coming out loud and clear right now. A lot of people who have been let go of jobs, who identified as who they were because of their job title, are really kind of confused.
Right. That was their identity.
That's it. Now let's talk about your brand. On LinkedIn, you are crushing it. You're going live on LinkedIn. You're always there. Every time I open my feed in the morning, it's like, Andy. How has LinkedIn been valuable for you? How would you recommend people use it? Let's talk about facilitators specifically who want to grow their business.
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn is a great place. So first of all, going back to this idea of purpose, it's a good idea to know who you are and where you want to go, right? Like, why even go out and build a brand or use LinkedIn or whatever it is, let's start there. But then second of all, this idea of having a personal brand, everybody has a brand, whether you're an entrepreneur, you're in a company, you work for yourself, you work for other people, no matter what level you are, you have a brand. Your brand is simply what, other people's perceptions of you. And so it's up to you whether you want to take control of that or not, whether you want to use social media for that or not. I'm a big fan and proponent of that. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are coming around and working on building their brand. I think a lot of people in corporate still think that's not something they need to worry about. And yet, when you think about getting that next job, I talk to recruiters about this all the time. When you look at looking somebody up to maybe recruit them for a job, you look at their LinkedIn profile, you look at their resume. Yes. Do you also see what kind of content they put out there? What kind of brand they built? Absolutely, they do. Right. And that all contributes to what's that next thing, that next job, that next business opportunity you're going to get. When it comes to LinkedIn, it used to be kind of a place where everybody just stored their resume, maybe made some connections. There were some salespeople on there, people looking for a job. Now I think everybody is on LinkedIn, and it's a great place to network. It's a great place to create content. And, it's a great place to try different stuff. So on the content side of things, I've been really focused on building a brand there for the last 2.5 years. I had a goal to post something almost every day, and I've kind of been sticking with that and just trying different things. I follow a lot of influential people on there and try to see what they're doing, learn from them. I interact with a lot of people on there. It's a great place to start conversations, to meet, potential clients. I've made friends through LinkedIn that I've, later hung out with in real life. It's a great place to be. You can create all kinds of different content on there. You can do videos. If you're not comfortable on video, you can write, short form posts. You can write articles. You can even create like slide decks and PDFs that people flip through. You see people trying all different types of stuff. And you also don't have to, when it comes to creating a brand, and I talk about this in the book too, you don't have to create your own content, right? Like I put too much pressure on myself to do that all the time. There's plenty of articles out there that you can share, videos you can share, blog posts, books that you've read, just things that you're going through, you're experiencing, that you've read, you've seen, other people's posts that you can share and add your own comments, your own flair to. And all of that, I think, contributes to building your brand. And, you never know who's going to see that stuff and what they're going to start thinking. But if you start putting enough out there, then one day you might be talking to Leanne Hughes and she'll be like, man, I've seen you everywhere.
There we go, full circle.
Right?
But it's true. Yeah. I've seen a lot of really great people build their profile just through commenting on other people's posts.
Oh, yeah.
And what they've written down as thoughts. It's like, wow, that's so good. And, so you can definitely do that.
Yeah, that's a good point. You don't even have to create content or post anything. Oh. You can spend all your time commenting on other people's posts and people will see it, especially if it's like someone really popular, like a Josh Burson, who I mentioned. He has 800,000 followers on LinkedIn. So if he puts content out, he gets a lot of comments. And if you put something really thoughtful on there, other people are going to see it in the HR space. And they're mostly HR talent development because they follow Josh.
Clever. So, Andy, this is the First Time Facilitator podcast. You've been facilitating for over 10 years internationally. If you had to give yourself advice going back the 10 years into when you first started delivering workshops, what would you tell yourself?
I think one of the most important things for me, and the advice that I've often given to younger facilitators when they're first starting out, is to learn as much as you can from other facilitators, watch other facilitators as much as possible, and learn as much as you can from them, and then take what you need and adopt it to your own style. Don't try to be anybody else, right? Because I see other facilitators all the time that I'm like, oh my God, he's so good, or wow, she's great. I wish I could do it like that. But that's their style, right? And you have your own style, and I have my own style, and we all get to be great in our own way. We can learn from each other, learn what other people are doing, listen to this podcast and all the great guests that Leanne has, and learn the tips and tricks from them, and then just adopt it and make it your own. And I think that has served me really well. I would tell myself again and again that as a young facilitator, to keep learning as much as I can from other people, get as much feedback as I can, or adopt as my own, get as much feedback as I can, and just keep adjusting and learning along the way.
Awesome. It is a constant adjustment process, I find, as a facilitator. And when I see like people doing cool things, or interviewing people like yourself and Michael, who just give you some really cool tips, you think, oh yeah, that's great. How would that work with my style? So yeah, I've even said before, that's the same advice I'd give out. Find out what you love and bring that into your experiences as well.
Yeah. And you mentioned, by the way, Michael, you interviewed him. He's been on this show. I've interviewed him a couple of times, and he gave the closing keynote at my conference. It was one of the best keynotes I've ever seen. It was amazing, very interactive, funny, engaging. His timing was impeccable. I learned a lot from what he did. There was a moment where I was like, wow, I wish I could be him, but I don't need to be, right? I can just learn from what he did and incorporate that into my own style, and then go off and use that on my own.
It's funny because I've listened to his podcast, even his previous one, Do More Great Work, and the way that he opens up his podcast and talks. I've also thought that I wish I could talk like him. He just has a way with words and language. But it's good. Like, hey, it's Andy and Leanne just kicking it today.
That's it. That's what we do.
Andy, if our listeners would love to reach out, find out more about what you do, your podcast, your new book, where should we send them?
You know what? I just created a new report that I think could be really useful for those who are listening to this career conversation, of the top mistakes that people make in their career. Asked a lot of people about this and just compiled the results recently. And they can go get that by heading to ownyourcareerownyourlife.com, which is the name of the book, ownyourcareerownyourlife.com /mistakes. And they'll be able to get that full report of the top mistakes. And you can also, of course, find me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, posting out there every day, interacting with people. Would love to connect with you and hear your facilitation stories.
Andy, thank you so much. What a cool idea for a tool to help people, mistakes, things to avoid. I think that's really handy. So I'll pop a link to that in the show notes. It's been so cool chatting to you after sort of following your journey on social, and now getting the chance to chat. Thanks for everything that you shared today, and for also keeping it real as well. I think you just talk about tactical, tangible ways of getting things done, which I really appreciate. And it's good to see you living it every day as well. So thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Liam.
Thank you so much for listening to my conversation with Andy on today's episode. I hope you enjoy it. Hit the subscribe button. I'm putting out bonus episodes all the time. And if you'd love more information on being a founding member, it's only open for 7 days. You'll never get this rate again. You can find the invitation to join if you are someone that wants to build your business on the back of reliable word of mouth marketing and open yourself up to some amazing opportunities. That's why we got into the game of training and facilitating. You can find that over at leannehughes.com/invitation. And I've got some really exciting episodes coming up. I cannot wait to share with you. Thank you so much for listening. Have an awesome week and chat soon.